Hello, hello, lovelies. I hope you all are having an amazing day. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Lauren, and this week I'm back with another video in my series, Lauren Talks About Random Movie Stuff. So, today's video is going to be a little bit similar to my last video, and that it is about a horror movie remake. So, we're going to be talking about the amazing, beautiful, wonderful masterpiece that is I Know What You Did Last Summer, and the very recent television series Remake that was made, I believe by Amazon. I had seen like advertisements for the new series, so I kind of wanted to watch it anyways. I'm a little bit skeptical when it comes to these like series, right? Because you need a longer story than what's in an original movie. And so if you're remaking a movie in the form of like a television series, I think it's very hard to get the same feeling and have a similar style to how the original movie was done. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about my feelings on the original movie, and we are also going to talk about my feelings on the new series, how I feel like it compares to the original movie, and if I think it's any good. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the original movie, I feel like a lot of people will agree with me when I say that this movie is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it is just really, really well done. They start off with just an absolutely phenomenal cast, right? You know, especially the women. We have Sarah Michelle Gellar. I mean, Buffy was like my comfort series growing up. And then we have Jennifer Love Hewitt. You know, I loved her in The Ghost Whisperer. And so, you know, you really can't go wrong. They are just absolutely phenomenal in this movie. And then on top of that, just the pacing of this movie, the way it's scripted, all of it is just so solid. It just really, I mean, I just rewatched it the other day and it holds up. It really does. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the movie and like the premise behind it, it's about these four teenagers, right? And they are out driving after this party, and you know, they're acting really crazy, and they end up hitting this guy in the middle of the road, and they think that he's dead. And so they're sitting there trying to figure out, okay, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna call the police? Are we just gonna leave him here? Like, what is about to happen? And it's all of these kids that have just graduated from high school, and so they're like, no, we don't want to ruin our future. So they end up dumping his body into a lake, and as they're doing it, they realize that he's actually still alive, and they end up pushing him down into the water, and they just assume that he's dead, right? Honestly, I feel like this movie was kind of made as a way to scare children away from distracted driving, but I digress on that one. Anyways, all of that being said, so that's how the movie starts off, and then it jumps to a year later when all of them have finished their first year in college, or are doing whatever they're doing in the wake of this whole incident. None of them speak to each other anymore. And so they come back together after a year, and Jennifer Love Hewitt, who plays the main character, she finds this note that says, "I know what you did last summer." So right off the bat, she gets this note. It's very vague. You aren't really sure if like that's exactly what the person is talking about when they send her this note, right? And so she's immediately freaked out. She contacts all these people she hasn't spoken to in forever. And, they kind of talk through it, and they're like, how are they going to prove that this actually happened? Maybe this isn't what it's about. Maybe it's about something else. So you start off with these kids who have had this like really traumatic accident happen. You're not really supporting the decision that they made in dumping this person's body. But, the characters and the way that they're written are likable enough that you're kind of supporting, their journey and figuring out, who knows and how can we cover this up, right? And then one night, one of the characters is attacked, and another character, not one of the people that dumped the body, ends up getting killed. And so the teenagers realize, like, okay, this person does know what happened. They're connected to all of this somehow, but they're not, they're not trying to report us to the police. They're angry about what happened, and they are coming after us. And another thing that I think this movie does really well as far as like the scripting and the acting is like, you really believe, okay, this is how people would react after going through this traumatic incident. This is how these kids would actually act. if they were in this situation where somebody was coming after them to kill them after they did something so awful and illegal. I mean, they don't want the police to know because they can't explain to them why this person is coming after them. But at the same time, they're terrified because somebody is trying to kill them. The pacing of the movie is like really slow, but in a way where you're not really sure if they're going to be killed or not. And so when, a couple of the characters do end up dying, it's like you've really grown with them and you've really come to enjoy them in the movie. So when they die, you're actually upset about it and you're almost like, wow, I almost thought that they were going to make it through. You know what I mean? Especially Sarah Michelle Gellar's character. Her name is Helen. And so in Helen's death scene, the killer ends up tracking her down and is like chasing her through this back alleyway, and she ends up making it over to her older sister's store, and she gets her older sister to let her in, and she goes in to call the police. And then while her older sister is trying to like lock one of the other doors, the killer gets in and kills her. And then Helen realizes that the guy has gotten into the store, and so she runs off and she ends up being able to escape the building, and she's running down this alleyway, right? I mean, it is this whole scene. I mean, it is probably close to like 10 minutes long. I don't know. I didn't time it. But she gets to the end of this alleyway and you just see it in her eyes that she knows she's about to escape. There's this whole parade of people walking by right at the end of this alleyway, and she is just about to get out, and you really feel like she might escape. And then the killer steps out right in front of her and kills her. I probably should have given like a spoiler warning for this, but I mean, it came out in 1997. So if you haven't seen it already, you're already doing yourself a disservice, okay? But all of that being said, I mean, you really are with her in that moment. You are devastated that she died, right? At least I know I was. I was like, I know in my soul that she is not going to make it because I know she's got to die. But I wish she would survive. She has done so much just to make it out, and then she doesn't. It's just devastating. And of course, there's 2 other movies that came out after this one, so they set up for a sequel. And it's kind of funny because the guy that's chasing after them, he's like, make sure the guy's really dead, and then they don't even make sure that he's really dead in the end, He warned him. That's all I have to say. And so there's a little bit of a twist about who the killer is, but it relates really directly to everything that happened, and it's a very clear storyline. Everything is wrapped up really well. I just think that this movie, especially for the fact that it came out in 1997 and the fact that it's a slasher film, which I don't always love and they don't always have a great story, I think this movie is really, really well done. Now, all of that being said, the new series. Y'all are lucky that I enjoy making these videos, because if I had had to watch this series on my own, if I had just watched the first episode and tried to watch it on my own and I wasn't making a video about it, there is no way I would have made it through the whole thing. Absolutely no possible way at all. I really tried to go in with as clear a head as I could. I was kind of expecting it to be like the Scream series. I was expecting more of like a teenage drama with a similar premise to the original movie. That was what my expectation was. And it definitely met that expectation. That's what this show is. This show is a teen drama that is made for modern time, that if you took out the context that it's based on the old movie, maybe you wouldn't even realize that it was. But, you can see the clear correlation. It's, the same kind of thing. It's about these teenagers that end up hitting somebody in the middle of the night because they're distracted, and they end up getting rid of the person's body, and then it jumps to a year later and there's somebody coming after and killing them, right? But despite it having a similar premise, the one thing that this show does that just makes it not that great is that there is way too much going on. I could not even begin to explain to you the entire premise of the show without taking like an hour to explain it, honestly. So I'm just gonna try to explain like a couple of the things that are going on in this show, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what this show is about, right? So, same thing, there are a bunch of friends, they're all at this party together on graduation night. So, the first thing that is like very different is that this show centers around these two twins, right? And they get into this huge fight. You're not really sure what it's about at the beginning. So, they get into this huge fight, and one of them gets into their car wearing her sister's jacket. And so all of their friends pile into the car with her, and they assume that she is her sister. And then they drive off, and they all still think that this is the other sister. And the other sister is walking on the road, and that is the person that they hit. So they assume that they have just hit Allie is the other twin's name. But Allie is in fact the one driving the car, and they have just hit Lennon, who they think was the person driving the car. I don't know if that made any sense to you just now, but I can promise you that it is just as confusing when you're watching it. But also, the other thing that I have to say is that so these two twins are played by the same girl. They are played by the exact same girl. She does a really good job of making sure that their characterizations are different enough that you can tell which twin she is being when she's on screen, right? But the thing is that as soon as I saw her in the car, I knew that it was Allie. And all of her friends got into the car. These friends that have known these twins for their entire life and said, "Oh, Lennon, start driving." Okay, I've seen this girl on screen for like 15 minutes, and I can tell that this is Allie sitting in this car right now. And you're gonna tell me that you don't know that that's Allie? You think that that's Lennon? It is just like bonkers to me that nobody in this show, except for the killer, figured out that this was the other twin. You know what I mean? And twins really are different enough, and people that have known these twins for their entire life, like, really should know that, you know? So, anyways, first thing, they're twins. They've switched places. They think that one's dead and she's actually lied, the other one's dead. So that's the first thing going on. The next thing going on is there is a whole, like, subplot about this cult, right? This cult where all of these people had like a suicide pact together and they all died. And apparently the twins' dad and their mom were both involved in this cult, and they never even knew. And that's another thing, is the twins have a mom who supposedly killed herself, and then you find out at the end of the show that she didn't actually kill herself, but she's still a part of this cult, or still believes their ideology, right? But then the cult subplot makes absolutely no sense, because they keep sitting there talking about this prophecy and what you're getting in the next life or whatever, and they never explain it. They never explain to you. I could not tell you a single ideology from that cult, yet it is like a huge part of this series, and I just don't understand why it was even included in the first place. And so on top of that, like, one of the main guy characters, who's like one of the main love interests of the twin who survived, was in love with Allie for her entire life, and then ended up sleeping with her sister Lennon, who he now thinks is alive. He thinks Allie's dead. Y'all, I could just go on all day about all of the crazy stuff that happens in this show that just makes absolutely no sense. And so the biggest thing is that because there is so much going on, you're not really sure what's going on at any moment. Every single episode has to have some kind of like big reveal, and so nothing seems like a big reveal. And even when you find out who the killer is, it's like, it makes no sense that that person is the killer. And so the one thing that I realized really early on is that because the story is all over the place, none of the characters' motivations make any sense. And so the actors are not bad. I think they actually do a pretty decent job with what they're given. It kind of reminds me of Riverdale, how it just like goes off the deep end and the actors are trying their best, and like, but nothing that is going on makes any sense, and none of the dialogue makes any sense. It's really cheesy. It sounds like an adult writing for teenagers, writing what they think teenagers say, you know? And so by the end of the show, I was just sitting there and I was like, why did any character do anything that they did throughout the entire series, just none of it made any sense whatsoever. And so the other thing about this show is that all of like the gore and like the violence is just very much overkill. I mean, I know that I'm not huge for slasher things anyways, and so maybe other people wouldn't feel the same as I do, but I think they just go over the top right from the beginning to an extent where you don't get that same feeling of the slow burn, where the pacing is really slow towards the beginning, so you don't know if they're going to survive or not. The killing starts pretty much immediately. And even in the original movie, you know, she gets this note that says, "I know what you did last summer." In the show, she finds a goat head at the back of her closet and then words on her mirror that say, "I know what you did last summer." And it's like, okay, there's no question there. There's somebody who's extremely violent who was able to cut off a goat head and put it in her closet and then wrote this message for her. There is nothing left to the imagination there. Somebody is coming for them, somebody who is violent and somebody who is not about to go to the police about what they did. This is a clear threat right from the beginning. I'll give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt because I think that the reason that they didn't explain everything in the show, including like the cult subplot, is because they are planning for a second season, which I have no clue if they got, you know, approved for. And honestly, unless you guys really ask me to watch it and talk about it, I probably will not watch it. But yeah, so I very honestly did not like this show whatsoever. From the very first episode, I got done with the first episode and I said, I don't want to keep watching this. I do not want to keep watching this, and I did it anyways, just for you guys. So listen to me now. Learn from my mistake. Do not watch this show. Just go rewatch the original movies again. That's all you need to do. Just enjoy that. And if you've already watched the show or you decide to watch it despite my warning, I am sorry for you. All right, well, I think I'm done ranting now. That is all of my thoughts on the original I Know What You Did Last Summer and the new Amazon Prime series. If you've watched the original movie or you watched the series or you end up watching either one because of this video, definitely leave me some comments and let me know what you thought about them. Maybe you loved it. I don't know. Let's talk about it. And as always, if you have any suggestions of movies that you want me to watch or maybe even any horror shows that you want me to watch and talk about, leave them in the comments below. If you are a fan of horror/thriller stories, that is all I post about, so definitely hit that subscribe button. And I do want to give a quick thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far, everyone that's been commenting. I've really enjoyed the discussions that we've had this far. I feel like I've been learning a lot about some of my favorite movies from you guys, probably even more than you've been learning from me, because I don't know what I'm talking about, to be honest. I just like watching horror movies. But all of that being said, continue to comment. I will continue commenting back and talking with you guys about all of these movies, and I definitely listen to your suggestions, so keep leaving them. All right, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your week. Be safe, wear a mask, and watch a horror movie this week because you deserve a little bit of a thrill. I will see you guys soon. Bye!